everyone. I am here with Susan Scott Shelley and Xio Axelrod for our sixth, if you can believe it, episode, yay, of Pairings. We are really excited to have Xio.
Yay!
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Introduce her.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we will talk about Frankie and Johnny?
Well, I am from Philadelphia, as anyone who follows me on social media will know, because I talk about it all the time. Or if you've read my books, most of them are set there. I write contemporary romance, all flavors of contemporary. I grew up in the music industry, so music is part of my whole persona and bloodline. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here and talk to you guys. I'm big fans of both of you, so this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Well, we are really excited to have you,
Yes.
and we read the two Frankie Meets Johnny books. So one is When Frankie Meets Johnny, and then the other one is Frankie and Johnny Let the Music Play. Let me just say.
I love those two. I love them so much.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, they were so, I just want to say, I can't.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure because these books, it was actually one sort of, I don't know, word pour out of me. I don't want to say vomit because that sounds horrible, but like it came out in one big rush over a couple of days, these two books. And I wasn't quite sure where it was going. It was just like Frankie popped into my head and started talking, and so my laptop was broken and I was on my Mac because I don't write on the Mac. I'll format like books there, but I don't write on the Mac. But I had to, get my laptop service. So I was like, la-di-da, what do I do? And I just sort of sat down and opened Pages or whatever it is. And Frankie started talking, and that's why it opens that way. Like, when he talks about his relationship with music, and I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going, but I'll just keep going. And then the story just, it was like 3 days, 40,000 words or something like that. And I was like, holy moly,
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. And they just sort of, I fell in love with him, and then fell in love with Johnny. And so that's how it came to be.
I love Frankie's relationship with the music. I mean, I love how he
It's such an integral part of him.
It really is.
Yeah, he's the closest character I've written to myself in terms of
that's what I kept
music.
thinking when I was reading it.
Yeah. He's a mellophile, which I had to look up that word to figure out what it is, because it sounds really cool in that he has this really intrinsic relationship with the music that he loves and listens to. He needs music around him almost all the time, and he can't deal with silence. Like there's always either humming in his head or something is playing in the background or whatever, but he's always has this like his finger on music, whether it's in the background of a TV show, whatever it is, he's always listening for the music. And that's how I am. That's how I've always been. And my father's like that. My sister's like that. We can be in a restaurant with like 15 people having a conversation. If a song comes on, we all go, oh, like all three of us. It's just one of those things. And it drives people crazy sometimes because like you're talking and in the middle of a conversation and like a song will come and be like, just a second, did you hear that? You know what I mean? And it's like, people be like really nuts. But like, yeah, he's the closest character to me that I've written in terms of that. So that was a little scary to put out there. Sometimes it can be a little intrusive, the music, but
Yeah, I loved how he would, I loved the relationship with Johnny. Like I loved seeing that develop and how it really, I felt like it developed through the music. Like,
that's his language. That's
Frankie's
language.
And I loved that Johnny, that he loved that about Frankie, that he appreciated it, that he, that he saw value in that.
Yeah, where so many people had sort of dismissed it as an obsession or some sort of like, oh, you like me, you're a fanboy, whatever it is. Like, they didn't understand how important music is to Frankie's life. Like Susan said, the integral part of his life is.
Yeah, so good. So.
Yeah, I love you give him a word or you give him the mood or, when he selects the song and just like, that's just like,
that was so much fun when
That's a really cool thing.
I don't know where that came. I mean, again, Frankie, you know, you guys are authors, so you understand that they live in your head, and he just wouldn't shut up about like music and everything. There was stuff he was talking about, stuff that I hadn't listened to for years, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, I remember that album, you know, like, and when that came up, it was like, you know, he's a DJ, okay, he's in a radio station, and I, you know, in college, I was a nighttime radio DJ, and I would basically play whatever I wanted to because you could. But people would call or stop by the station and be like, oh, yo, you know, I really feel like some New Order right now, or I really feel like some Tool or whatever. And you're like, okay, I know your mood. Like, if you like this band, you'll like this. And if you like this, you know what I mean? So he was like, yeah, I don't want people to tell me what song they want to hear. I want them to tell me what they're feeling. And then I can either help them, you know, get more of that feeling or try to take that feeling away if it's a, you know, negative one.
When you think about it, like music is so powerful to be able to do that. So like he wields like, I was thinking he just wields so much power.
And he loves it too. He loves it. You know, that's his domain. You know, I'm Frankie L. You know, the whole thing that's his fate. That's why it's so jarring to him to have someone working with hammers and saws and nails and stuff in the next room.
That's like the worst thing possible for him.
It was horrible. And he was like, how could you do this to me? I'm like, but it's going to be so much fun, you know.
And I like writing just has this like lyrical quality to it anyway. And I guess because you are a songwriter, you know, but
thank you for saying that. That's so nice.
Yeah. It just,
do you guys read out loud after you finish something? Do you read it out loud to hear?
I sometimes do. I should do every time, but I sometimes do. Yeah.
Yeah,
I put it on Word and like that monotone.
yeah, I tried that. I tried it with this actually because I was on the Mac and I was like, oh, it does speech to or text to speech, and yeah, that drove me crazy. So I did it myself, and I did it in Frankie's voice.
Did you?
I love that Scottish brogue.
Which was like, yeah, no, but you know, it was like I needed to hear it out loud, and I guess just from like you said from songwriting, I need those beats and I need that rhythm, and that's why I break up sentences and all that kind of stuff. And,
you know. No, that was cool.
And I don't think, I don't feel like you could read this book with that monotone voice and word, or, you know, like, I feel like it's because it is lyrical. So I feel like you would miss a huge piece of it.
And it was, Susan is like I went through quite a search for the voice for the audiobook. I went through a 3-month period of trying to find someone to read the book. And I was so happy that when I did find someone who could bring him to life, and we're talking about doing a little more together, but yeah, I don't know. I love, this is like, I used to think that I would, you know, that whole book of my heart thing that people say, I totally get it. I got it from like a distance. I can understand why someone, but like these characters, this universe is probably the first time I felt that like book of my heart feeling was with Frankie, and it probably because I'm so close to him, you know, musically.
And the, you know, I mean, the other characters in the book, like, you know, the ex Garrett. So in the beginning, I'm kind of like, Garrett.
Yeah.
You know, like, as you're reading both of these books, it's like, oh, Garrett. Like, I mean,
I didn't want to demonize him.
Yeah, like, you need to, like, you know, take a step back and, you know. But then it was like, oh, Garrett, you're really sweet.
Yeah, the scene in the first book where he comes over with the wine. I was like, oh, do I want to put that in there? Because, you know, we're talking romance and like you don't really, you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to like, you know, push anybody away with a scene with the ex, but I needed that in there because I needed them to understand that like Frankie's not like desperate or, you know, like he's lonely because he feels like no one's ever really understood him. But he's not desperate for a guy. He's not like, you know, and he and Garrett had a powerful connection. It just wasn't the right kind of connection. And I think going forward, I want to play around with the dynamics of the friendship that comes out of that. But in book 2, not to give a lot away, but you know, he's sort of a voice of reason, you know, for Frankie when he starts to doubt things. So like, I didn't want to demonize him. I didn't want him to make him a horrible ex and all that. I wanted him because they had this. There was a reason why they were together for so long, and it wasn't just the sex. You know what I mean? I wanted to give him a more well-rounded personality.
Yeah. So Garrett and Dyer going like
spoilers. Like I kind of give it away at the end of book 2, but I didn't see no one commented on it, and I was like,
really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Even in the short story that was in the anthology, there's another hint, and then I was like, no one is picking up on this, really? Like really?
I was like, like when Garrett, like, you know, like the part, and I was like, oh, is that who? Like so tell us.
We shall see.
Oh.
No, but yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be. I haven't written that yet. It's in my head, and they're screaming to come out, but I had other priorities I had to get to first. But yeah, there's definitely stuff going on there. It's gonna get interesting.
Yeah, I really like Dyer as a character, and I don't know. I'm excited.
Yeah,
he started out being sort of cardboard cutout of like every like commercial radio station DJ I've ever worked with. Like that sort of really shallow veneer, and you didn't know if there was anything behind it, but it was just like always on, you know what I mean? You're just like, is there a person behind the radio personality? Because even like in social situations, they were still on. And
and that makes you wonder, like, is that a front for, you know, like kind of like
so he started out that way, and I was like, I can't do it, you know. So, and especially when I realized what was going on with him, I was like, I need to flesh him out a bit more. So I showed a little bit. I tried to show some of his vulnerabilities. He's got some jealousy in terms of Frankie's ability to find someone and fall that quickly, but he's still a supportive best friend, you know. So yeah, and he's got some professional jealousy as well.
Yeah.
So, and there's another character who I barely mentioned, whose book in my head, the series was 4 books, but now it's obviously going to be more than that. But the character that they talk about, Simon, the other DJ, he's got a book and a really fun story. So yeah, I guess I can tell you. I think his blurb. I don't think I put any blurbs out there yet, but his book, he was the lead singer of a rock band. Go figure. And he was like the cliche rock and roller, trash the hotel room, like groupies, all that whole thing. And they do a show in Philadelphia, and he trashes the hotel room or does something crazy. I don't remember what it is. And his band is so fed up with him, they just leave him and go on to, they fire him and leave him and go on to the next city without him.
I love that.
And he wakes up and he's no longer in the band, all over the news. He has like the money in his pocket and whatever is on his card and stuff like that. He stays in the hotel until the money runs out, stays in Philadelphia, and ends up being a DJ at this station, because that's like,
that's
somebody
awesome.
asked him to do it, and he's like, sure. So he has no so he's an interesting character, and I don't give a lot of him away in these first 2 books, except that he has sort of regained a level of notoriety as a DJ, as a tastemaker. That's the only thing I think tell about him in this. But yeah.
That's exciting. I love
a fun universe.
Yeah, I love like when we get sucked into a world, a universe, you know, like I felt like that with these books. I felt like, you know.
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah, like I wanted to call Frankie up and say, this is the mood I'm in.
For a little while I was doing that on Instagram.
Yeah.
I was posting these like Frankie, you know, the question like, Frankie L's in the DJ booth, what's your mood? And people would like give me, you know, their mood, and I would post songs as Frankie. But
I like appreciate that, because just like from like having conversations with you over the years, like you introduce me to new artists, or like I've listened to new music with you if we've been like staying somewhere together or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that's a very Xio thing anyway. So
it totally is. That's what I said. He's, you know, he gives me.
But I love that, because you would call in and then Frankie would give you this song, and it could be a band you've never heard of, or it could be a band that you have forgotten about. Yeah. Or it could be just like the song that, you know, just like, I don't know. I think it's really cool. So.
It's something that my dad and I, you know, I grew up in the industry, and my father, if whatever band or artist I liked, whatever song that was popular, he would listen to it with me, and he'd go, that guitar line is from this 1955 recording of blah, 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 like some derivative of that. And they got that bass line from here. And that drum rhythm was the opening to, and he would do that. And so like, as I got older, we would sit down, you know, on a Saturday afternoon and listen to music. But I would say, listen to this album. And he would sit and he'd listen, and he moved from analyzing it to asking me why I liked it. You know, and then eventually he was like, okay, yeah, I like this one. You did good here. You know what I mean? But he would really, really like scrutinize the stuff. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love this band so much. And he's like, okay, here's who they're ripping off. And I'm like, oh, you're ruining it for me. So now my thing is like, when people come over or hang out with friends, I'm like, hey, what do you listen to? Oh, you like them? You might like these guys, you know? And that's like the biggest tool for me, is to introduce someone to a new song or band or artist or whatever. I love that.
That's awesome. And I feel like that's hard. Like, I feel like it's harder to do now. Like, I feel like, well, I mean, I'm older than both of you, but like when I was growing up, like I felt like, you know, the radio stations, they played like kind of everything. Like, and now it's, you know, you have this station plays this kind of music, this station plays this kind of music with the satellite. Like, I feel like it's almost harder to be exposed to different,
especially in the States. Like, we really compartmentalize our music.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
As a musician, I had to leave the United States to get any sort of like radio play or anything, because here it was like, my stuff was so eclectic. You know, I was doing rock and pop and soul and Celtic, and people were like, we don't know what to do with this. Yeah, like, first they were like, oh, she's like, they were like, oh, she's like Tracy Chapman. No, she's like Sade. And it was like not to put too fine a point on it, it was like every Black artist that they could think of was like not, you know, R&B. They were like trying to put me there, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm none of those things. And then when I went away, well, first it was like, oh, she's her father's daughter, because, you know, he had some more notoriety outside of the States again. But then it was like, oh, she's doing this really cool reggae song here, and there's this Celtic rock song here, and they loved it. And BBC was like, whatever, and they were just like, whatever. And here it was like, well, what box do you fit in? You know, so the stations are like that. Like, you'll listen to a UK radio station, and they'll play Cher, you know, then they'll play like the Black Eyed Peas, and they'll play The Who, and they'll play like, and they're just like, and I'm like, this is the same station. Like, that would never happen here. Like, you would never hear those things in this, you know.
And then crazy. You hear the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh my God, like, I've heard that, you know, every time I'm in the car, I hear this song.
Yeah, and it's funny because like we have satellite radio, and we only listen to it when we're in the car. But like, we drove up to upstate New York last month or month before last, and it was like, oh, cool, I haven't heard some of the new, you know, the top 18 or whatever they're doing. But like, they played the top 18 every hour. Yes. And I was like, so that's 18 songs. Yeah. Like, you know, so like, you're not getting much else in between those blocks of 18. So it was just like, oh my God. By the time we got there, I was like,
you know. I know we do this. It's the same thing. We have, you know, we have satellite. And when we like drive to see my parents, they're in North Carolina, and it's the same, exactly the same thing. Like, and my kids will be like, haven't we heard this song? I'm like, oh my God, yes, we've heard it 20 times in this drive.
It's
you'll have all the lyrics memorized for the time you get there.
Whether you like the song or not. Yes. That's what drives me crazy. Like, there are songs and artists that I really don't like, and I'm like, and the song comes on, I'm like, I can't stand this. I'm like, oh, especially the way my mind works, because it'll latch onto a hook like you wouldn't believe it. And I'm just like, really, brain? And I start like, I put on something else just to like flush it out, you know. Drives me crazy.
Oh my gosh. Because it was this time of year, and I read book 2 this week, and I made a pumpkin bread, which is more like a pumpkin cake. The scenes in the books, but let's just say they're spicy, and I thought that the spiciness of like the cinnamon and all that, I thought would, you know, can tie in well. Yeah. And then for my beverage, I just went with, I didn't have Scottish breakfast tea, but I had Irish breakfast tea. That's all right. That's all right. So I'll drink this like all day. I mean, obviously, you know, I love coffee, but like with my, you know, if it's something Scottish or British, like I was telling Xio, or I might have said Chantal too, when I watch the British baking show, I make my tea because it makes me feel more British, which is so stupid. But anyway.
I surround myself with like, because, you know, I spend a lot of time in the UK. And so like I have these cravings for like the weirdest things. I mean, I keep, you know, either PG Tips or Thai food tea. That's what I have it in my thing right now, which is purple. But like I'll even, and I've only been to Norway once, but like every once in a while I'm like, man, I really miss Norway. Let me have a kveik lunch, which is like a little, like sort of like a Kit Kat, but it's more nutritious. Like I'll just be able to go and grab like just a tea or something little handy just to remind me. Yeah, like you said, it makes you feel like you're there or connected or something like that. So I totally get it. I get it. But yeah, the scenes are a little spicy.
So I kept thinking like throughout both the books, like it just felt very sensual to me. And so I was trying to think about, all felt very sensual and very like, I think it was because of the music, very rich. And so I went with, and my daughter, essentially she's the one who made these.
She's a really good baker.
My 12-year-old. So I went with little mini cheesecake.
That's very impressive.
And
oh my goodness.
So here's the thing. We were going to make we did make salted caramel sauce to drizzle over, but we burned it ever so slightly, and quite frankly it was 9:00 last night and I was like, forget it. So I put little they're little like Heath bar
like the toffee
chips, with the toffee on top of them.
That sounds delicious.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at, my daughter did that. She's so
good.
She really is. She's 12, and oh my gosh. And then I paired it, and here's the thing. I thought it was a tawny port that we had downstairs, but it's a ruby port.
That's okay.
So I, because I thought the tawny with the salted caramel would be a good,
right.
And it really wasn't until today when I brought the port up that I was like, oh, it's a ruby port. But anyway, so I felt like it was, like, I felt these are like, it kind of like I think about and I think about my husband used to drink port a lot before we had kids, and so one of the things I just remember like being in St. Michael's, and it was like off season. We were like one of like 3 other people in the hotel, or and just having this, like, it was this really, I can't even remember how old the port was. It may have been like 50 years old or something, and sitting in front of the fireplace. So like I have this memory associated with port, and that's what cheers.
Nice.
What time is it?
I'll have my tea.
I can have a little port right now.
You can have some port. Pour some in here.
And I have to say too, that's good.
I did want to ask you, when they go on their, like, I guess there is the official date when they go to the restaurant. That is a real Philly restaurant, right? Or no?
Yeah, it was. Hopefully it's still there. Sampan is like my favorite restaurant in Center City. I want to call it, I guess, like Asian fusion, but it's more on the Thai side. But those edamame dumplings that you mentioned.
I was like, there's no way I can make them. So.
No, dude, I wish I was. No, whenever I go to that restaurant, I order 2 orders because it's an appetizer, and you get, I think, 6 in this truffle broth. And so I order 2 orders, and I say combine them into the one bowl, and then I ask whoever's sitting with me if they want to get some for them because they're not getting any of these, and then I always get some to go. And the waiter always looks at me like, "Are you like?" And I'm like, "No, there's the edamame dumplings there." Susan, you've been with me to the Dandelion, I think.
Yes.
Where I get the ricotta that they make, the house-made ricotta. I get some to have there, and I get an order to take home. Like, there are these dishes in these places, and I'm just like, So yeah, those dumplings. Dyer is a foodie, so he'll get.
Oh, that'll be a good. I can't wait to
he's gonna
hurry up and write that book.
I know, right? Oh my God.
Let's go, Xio.
I know.
Living in Philadelphia and the surrounding areas, I mean, so nice to like. I love reading books about Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah.
I was the first book or story that I wrote wasn't set in Philadelphia. And I was like, it was just because the story got me caught up in this Hollywood thing. It was a Hollywood thing. And as it went on, I was like, I have to tie Philly in here somehow. So I made one of the characters from Philadelphia, but none of it takes place in Philadelphia. But then all of my indie books are in the same universe. So like the TV show that's involved in that book gets mentioned in another book, the first book that I released, The Callum, which is partially set in Philadelphia. And that gets mentioned in there. And then like, Camden is set in Philadelphia, and this is set in Philadelphia, and my next series is set in Philadelphia. So like, I feel like, New York is awesome, Chicago's awesome, LA is great, London's wonderful, but Philly is such a world-class city, and it doesn't get any sort of like...
It doesn't get any respect.
Any respect. Like even films that are shot here, films that are supposed to be shot here aren't really shot or weren't shot here. They're shot in Toronto or something like that. And, so it's like, can we just, this is a gorgeous city. It's beautiful. The landscape is lovely. We have all this culture and food,
Food, yeah.
So like, let's just like celebrate it, And Philly, we're weird. We don't celebrate ourselves except for like when we win the Super Bowl or whatever, but like, we don't celebrate our music legacy. We don't celebrate our actors. Right. Like they move on, they move out and go somewhere else and stuff. So like, I wanted to like give Philly its due in my books. So
yeah, I mean, I have always, so when I was a kid, we moved from Southern California to Southern Jersey.
Culture shock.
I know. But like one of the things, because we were in South Jersey. So, I mean, I loved Philadelphia, loved it. And then, I ended up with them. We moved to Houston, whatever. But when it came down to where to go to college, I was like, Philadelphia. Like Philadelphia it just never.
It gets under your skin.
It does. It really does. So, so, I mean, I came back and I just never left.
Yeah. We have this sort of resilience to us here because we're always the underdog. We're always the butt of the joke. And people underestimate and undervalue us all the time. In every, like, sports, culture, food, like, you talk about food. Philly, I think last year, a couple of the major magazines, like, named Philly the best food city in the United States. But whenever you talk about food in Philly, it's cheesesteaks and hoagies and soft, you know what I mean? Like, that's the joke. And so it's like, you guys really need to, you're so 1980s when it comes to your attitude about Philadelphia. Like, come on, so. I mean, we have our issues too, but the city is just an amazing little place. And it's not even little, I say little, but
It is.
There's so much cultural history here that's uncelebrated, especially in music. Not just the musicians, but like the things that started here, the movements that started here. Yeah. Motown gets all of this, praise, rightfully so, but we had the sound of Philadelphia, and people don't even realize that was a thing, unless you're here. You don't even realize that like those groups all came out of the same, music factory, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I try to, weave that into these stories.
So speaking of stories, so can we talk about the exciting news you have?
Oh, about Guishy? My editor was like, I call, because the girl with stars in her eyes is such a long title. And all the books have such long titles. I'm like, I'm gonna have to nickname these books because we can't just keep saying that every time I refer to it. So I call her Guishy. But yeah, it's super exciting. I was so happy that they understood what I was trying to do with that series. We seem to be on the same page. The first book doesn't come out until April, but they're excited. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they market it. Where they're pushing it and things like that, and who responds to it, because it kind of crosses genres, it crosses demographics. So I'm curious to see who like loves it and who doesn't. So
I'm trying to pull up a picture of the book cover while I'm listening to you.
It's behind, it's behind Zia.
They sent me, this was my first.
There it is. Okay, never mind. I will put my phone down.
My very first printed ARC.
I love it. Oh, I love that cover.
I know, it's a great.
It's a big book.
That's a big book.
It's a big, I mean, you know, okay, so we've got the 2 Frankie and Johnny books together.
My gosh.
Yeah, it's a big book. And yeah, so this cover, isn't it awesome?
It is.
It really is.
I love
very
her
eye-catching.
Yeah, her attitude, like, you know, she's looking over the glasses
I
at
like
you.
that.
She's like checking you out, trying to assess you. She's got the music in the lenses.
Yeah.
They really hit it out of the park with that one. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
That's up for pre-order now, isn't it?
It's up for pre-order everywhere. Like I every once in a while I'll look it up and I'm like, ooh, it's on a site I've never heard of before. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's been cool. It's been really cool. And the cover reveal, that was like, that blew me away.
That was awesome. Entertainment Weekly.
I was like, wait, what? Yeah. So yeah, that, you know, so I'm curious to see like how it's received. Hopefully people will love it. What I really want, I mean, regardless of, I mean, I'm sure my publisher wants it to sell 1 billion copies and that would be great. But what I really want is for people to fall in love with Tony and Seb, but really Tony, it's her story more than it is his. And it's a story not only of the 2 of them finding their way back to each other, because it's a second chance love story, but also her shaking off some of the baggage she carries from her mother in particular and her father. Her misconceptions about her own abilities, and also, you know, shaking off the notion that she can't have it all. Like she feels like she has this thing where she thinks that if she goes too far, gets too good, or gets too famous, that she'll lose herself and that she'll get stuck, you know what I mean? And so she meets this group of people who are sort of the same mindset, like, yeah, we love what we do, we really want to be successful at it, but we're not into the trappings. And she's like, okay, I didn't know that people like that, you know what I mean? So she falls in love with Seb, but she also falls in love with these women and what they're going to do together and where they're headed. And so it's like a dual love story for me in this. So I hope that it resonates with people.
Yeah.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Well, I'm very excited for it.
Yes.
And it's April
6th.
Oh, 6th. Okay.
April 6th. Yeah. But it's fun because, you know, I get to do all my music stuff. I was supposed to record a bunch of stuff this year, but you know, COVID. But we got the first single recorded last year, and so we were able to put that out. And it's a cover, but the original stuff I still want to record. Hopefully, we can get in the studio and do it. If not, I have obviously original songs of my own that I can put out under them. But they have their own social media presence. The band, they're called the Lilies. They have their own Instagram, their own Twitter, and Lily is the lead singer. She's the one that's technically driving it, so a lot of it's her. She'll slip into Norwegian every once in a while because she's Norwegian. But yeah, I'm trying to build their character, their personality online, so that people can feel like they know them and can follow their journey from where they start playing in backroom clubs to where they end up, which is, you know,
that's awesome.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
It's immersive experience, I think.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what else do you have on the horizon? What else are you working on?
Well, I just turned in book 2 in the Lily series. And I was going to go right into book 3, but we're going to space it out a little bit because they were like, slow down. So I'm going to go back to one of the other series, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go pick up the Skinners.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't really announce as a series, but everyone kind of knows that there were more than one book. But Camden's twin brothers book is probably the next one that I'll do. And then I have to go back to the Altar Love series and do book 2 there, which Fast Forward was the first one, and then Rewind is the second. And then I'll go back to these guys probably in the summer and go into Dyer's and Carrots book. Yeah, so that's in
awesome.
my head. That's how it's supposed to work out, but we'll see with the universe.
It has to work out that way. Come on.
Well, I mean, I have, November, I have some like administrative stuff. I'm redoing my website, and I have a class that I'm teaching for the Philadelphia writing workshop next weekend. And then over the holidays, I'm just going to like relax and see what comes kind of thing. Like I'm not putting any, because I know I'm going to get revisions on book 2 and all that other stuff. So like,
yeah,
now that I understand that process, because going from the indie world to the trad world was like, like, this is the first editor I've ever worked with, was my source book, well, the previous source book editor. So like that whole process was new for me, you know, so now that I sort of understand how things work, I can plan a bit better and maybe hopefully space out, you know, the books a bit more, because I wasn't sure what was happening in 2020. So nothing.
Well, I don't think
really.
anyone was.
Yeah, nobody did. I mean, even before the pandemic, it was like, I don't know how this process is going to go. I don't know what I can put out and when and that kind of thing. So I just sort of like sat back and let it go. Book 2 of the Lilies focuses on Kayla, who is our drummer, and the bus driver, which sounds really mundane, but you guys are gonna love Ty. I just tell you right now, you're gonna love him, and I can't wait to you guys. I mean, you're gonna love both of them, but he is something else. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited. I get to hear little bits.
Poor Susan.
No, when we talk, I get to hear little bits about characters and stuff. So I am already very excited for their book, and like, so yeah.
It was funny. Like, people are starting to read it now. I'm getting like text messages, and someone the other day was like, "I really can't wait for Lily's book." And I was like, dude, you got a while, but thank you. You know, I was like, that's gonna be the toughest book to write, because she's a piece of work. But like, the fact that someone said that this early was like, okay.
And that's really cool.
Yeah.
And she's gonna be the last book in the series.
She's the last book. Yeah, she's carrying, you know, a whole mall store of luggage worth of luggage. So it should be good.
How hard is it for you to switch? Like, do you do the same process? Like, do you have the same writing process for like when you're working on the Lilies books, or when you're working on Camden, or like when you were working on Frankie and Johnny? Like, are you listening to music? Because I know you can write fast draft, which I envy so much. Tell us your process.
Yeah, so my process is normally the fast draft. I fast drafted everything, including the very first iteration of Squishy, which obviously changed and morphed. And, you know, I went from one editor and I got passed to another editor, and then we started the process all over again. So like, my process totally came to a screeching halt with Squishy. You know, I'm a very insular author. I don't have critique partners. I don't have beta readers. I don't have an editor. You know, I don't even have a proofreader. Like, it's all me. So like, I would write something, let it sit for however long I needed to sit, go over it, you know, and make sure it was clean enough for me. And then that was it. It was done. Like, so giving this book to someone, having them sit on it for a month or two, then send back all their thoughts and changes, and then me redoing it and then sending it to them again and waiting for a month, like, that drove me crazy. Like, it really, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then to start the process all over again with someone new, it was like, really? You know, and we really had to have a conversation where she was like, forget everything you did, which was like, what? You know, like, forget the last, 6 months, you know, let's start over. And I was like, wow. You know, and then my agent was like, this could be a good thing. And I was like, yeah, you know, okay, all right, let me think of it that way. This is good. We're starting fresh. I kind of have an idea of what they want and what I want to do. So, you know, we'll start from this version. And then we started from there. And then it got a bit smoother. So now that I understand how that part is going to work, I can go back to my original process, which is like info dump, or not info dump, but just like get the words on the page, let it sit, can do my thing, and then send it off to someone else, which is the new step. But that whole thing of getting this book done was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I would call Susan and go, I don't know. You know, she's like, calm down. You know, so like that makes me feel better about my own process. I can get back to what I know. You know, so for book 2, the draft for, I think it came in at like 91,000, was 4 days to get those 90-something thousand words down.
That's incredible.
But for me to be able to, I was like jumping up and down for joy, because I hadn't been able to do that since I started working on this book. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this now, you know. And then it was like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to change a lot of it, but like, at least I got the basics of who these people are and what their goals are on the page, because I couldn't do that for such a long time. Even with my own indie stuff, I couldn't do it, because I was like so mired in my head over the process of what I had just gone through with Squishy. So now that I'm back on even keel, I feel like, okay, I know what I'm capable of now and what I can do. So that feels good. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but my process is back to being the process now, so yeah. But usually I have like a couple of different playlists that I listen to. A couple of them are public on Spotify. One's called The Writing Cave, which has like, I think it's like 400 to 500 songs in there. It's all like film soundtracks and like instrumentals, classic music, new age, whatever will put me in that sort of like foggy headspace where it blocks out all of the like fire engines and like neighbors, cats, or whatever it is, like, all that stuff gets blocked out because there's just a bubble of music around me, which is what Frankie does. He blocks out everything with music, his own thoughts, or it'll help him even focus his thoughts. And that's how I am. If I'm writing a scene that needs some angst or some rage or some passion, then I'll switch over to something that has lyrics. I listen to a lot of like trip hop for the sex scenes, like Massive Attack and stuff like that, or like Nine Inch Nails or whatever, industrial. And then I'll move to emo, I guess, for like a better word. If I'm writing an angsty scene, I'll put in like Sufjan Stevens or like Badly Drunk Boy or whatever, something like that, to get me into that like mood. If I need something that's like, if people are arguing, I'll put on some System of a Down or some Tool or something really like aggressive. And yeah, so it definitely helps me I don't have to listen to the song itself, it's just the mood, you know what I mean? And it helps me just sort of like let my hands do what they're going to do on the keyboard. And then when I sit back, I'm like, oh, okay, I got 10,000-15,000 down. Cool. That worked. Let me see what songs I listen to, and just create a playlist out of them and try to repeat the process. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. For all of us, probably the process evolves, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's it really is an evolution, and it's dependent on what's going on in life and in your head. And I mean, it just is.
And it should always evolve. If you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're probably writing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like you like shake it up. Like even if it's just something as simple as changing the space that you write in, or changing the music that you listen to, or something, something that will give you that little like spark of inspiration.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Xio.
Yes, thank you for joining us today.
I'm hungry now and I want pork.
I'm gonna have cheesecake. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to see you guys.
Me too.
Bye.
Bye.